You're listening to an episode of the Abigail Pugh podcast with, you guessed it, Abigail Pugh. I'm an introverted mama who took my online business from 0 to 7 figures in 15 months selling my own digital products on social media. And guess what? I did it all with my 3-year-old daughter no less than 3 feet away from me at all times. Now I'm bringing you everything I've learned about building a wildly profitable online business that supports your life while allowing you to truly live it. Get ready for raw, honest conversations with entrepreneurs making thousands per month selling their own digital products and people just like you who ditch self-doubt to create the life they've always wanted. If you're ready to make more money, have more impact, and still have time for the things that matter most, you're in the right place. Grab your sneakers, head out on your hot girl walk, and let's dive in. Today's guest is totally a full circle moment for me. I have learned so much from this guy and looked up to him for so long, so getting to have him on my podcast as a guest is pretty surreal for me. At this point, he has coached thousands of entrepreneurs and creators on how to grow on Instagram since launching his coaching business in 2018. And fun fact, in 2021, his personal following blew up thanks to Reels. We all love Reels. And he has grown at a rate of approximately 1,000 followers per day since then, which is insane to even say that out loud, right? He now has over 700,000 followers on Instagram. He personally consults with Meta on Instagram. And no, I am not talking about those free 30-minute calls that everyone had a few months ago. This guy is the real deal. So Brock, welcome to the show.
Well, Abigail, thank you so much. The full official bio and introduction. I appreciate you. You've become such a great friend over the last few months, and I'm really glad to be on your podcast and get to talk about the thing that you and I obsess over.
Yes, me too. I am so excited. Now, I'd love to start this off with a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. I know you come from a home, aren't both your parents entrepreneurs? I've listened to so many of your mom's podcasts. She's so fun. But I just would love to know kind of like where you started with your entrepreneurial journey. Like, did you ever have regular jobs or did you just jump right in? So fill us in a little bit on that.
Yeah. So, do come from an entrepreneurial family. My parents have worked together their entire life. And so my mom has always been kind of the out-facing, marketing-driven, acquisition, customer lead-facing person, the CEO of the business. And my dad has always been the CFO of the business. So he's always been the guy behind the scenes, the numbers guy, the math guy. So my mom can be the big dreamer and then he can be realistic about whether or not these things are possible. So my entire life, I've gotten to watch them, and monkey see, monkey do was very much how our home operated, at least in like the business sense growing up. It wasn't like we were sitting around the dinner table and having conversations about KPIs and ROI and all this stuff. And instead, it was just like, my sister and I both got to watch my parents live what it was like to be an entrepreneur, and especially live what it was like to be an entrepreneur when social media was new and when it was first becoming a thing. And so my parents have owned and sold and run a dozen or so different businesses throughout my life in just about every industry, whether it's certifications or coaching or physical products or apparel or fitness, like every single industry. I oftentimes will say as a joke that my parents have done everything except for sell drugs, but now they are getting into the supplement business. And so I guess you could argue that now they're even selling drugs. But so that's like what I was raised with. And so from a young age, I wanted to become a business owner myself, become an entrepreneur, but it was less so about making money, definitely not at a young age. And it wasn't necessarily about helping people at a young age. It was just like, this is fun. This is exciting. And so I would do these little like things for a couple months that I guess you could call them businesses, but they weren't real businesses. They were a step above a lemonade stand. And I would do them for a few months and then I would get bored and I would move on. And my parents never forced me to stick with it. They just kind of allowed me, hey, if you want to do this for a few months, go for it. And so I would. And then my freshman year of college is when I transitioned into the adult world. And when I transitioned into owning and starting my first real business, which at that time was a course that I sold for about $20 was that first course. And it was teaching moms how to keep their kids safe on Snapchat. So that's not available at all anymore today. And we can get more into like how I ended up there and why I decided on that. But that was my first course. And that was kind of the snowball that kicked off where I am today. And so to answer your final question, which is like, have I ever worked a traditional job or anything like that? No, I have not. I have, like I worked at camps, like as a football, coach, or, helped people move, or like babysat. Like I've done those little things, but I've never actually been employed anywhere. And I started this business when I was 19, and now I'm 27, and still working for myself and never actually had a boss.
Dude, best feeling ever. I'm so curious. Is your wife an entrepreneur as well?
She is just like my parents. She is the CFO. So she is totally
Gotcha.
behind the scenes. She makes sure that my life runs smoothly. She's very type A, so she's very organized. And I really appreciate that about her. Like I made a post about her the other day. I would not be able to operate and do the things that I do if it was not for her. So she's dabbled in social media, and she's had businesses and entrepreneurial ventures that she's run herself. But right now she's primarily just kind of focused on running the behind the scenes of everything that goes on in our business.
That's awesome. I feel like you definitely need one of each. My husband definitely does the same for me. And I'm like, I would not remember to eat. Like he comes in and
Yes.
be like, you need to eat lunch today. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. I haven't eaten in 5 hours. I guess I
Hmm.
should.
Yeah,
So
totally.
very helpful when you like marry somewhat of the opposite type of personality than what you are when you're an entrepreneur for sure.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I want to take this back just for a sec. You said your first course, which is a digital product,
Mhm.
was the Snapchat thing. How did you come up with that, right? Did you like see people struggling? Did you know parents that were like, hey, I don't know how to help? Like how that's such a niched topic. And I do feel
Yeah.
like it was something that was totally necessary, probably even necessary still now, but especially at the beginning of those types of social media platforms where there's just so much that can be hidden on Snapchat. So I'm curious like
Mhm.
how you found that market, how you decided, hey, this is the product I need to create.
Yeah. So it was actually the original seed of this idea was a problem that I was having and things that I was challenged with, which wasn't trying to figure out how to use Snapchat. It was that I was a freshman in college. I was on the opposite side of the country from my parents. I was feeling very homesick, very lonely.
Mm.
And I also was feeling guilty about the whole like silver spoon thing, where I was, again, totally far away from my parents. And I was on this college football team where half of my teammates came from like very privileged, affluent backgrounds and they could provide for themselves. And then the other half of my teammates could not provide for themselves and they couldn't buy a single meal. And
Mm.
the only food that they were getting was like what the team was able to like give to us basically for free. And so I felt guilty being like, oh, well, I can just buy groceries whenever I want and get food because I have my parents' credit card. I hated that feeling. And
Yeah.
so I knew that if I want to make money, if I want to be able to cut this financial umbilical cord and separate from my parents, I need a form of income. But
Yeah.
because I was a student athlete and going to school, books, and ball full time, I didn't have the time or the bandwidth or the energy to take on a job. Like I couldn't just go down the street and apply
Yeah.
at Sweet Green and work a 9 to 5. Like it just wasn't going to work that way. And so that's where I decided that I knew I needed to become an entrepreneur and I needed to start something for myself. Then, in terms of how did I actually decide on, the helping moms keep their kids safe on Snapchat thing, I looked at the market first and foremost, which the news that summer was all about two things. It was about Pokemon Go, which I didn't get into until 2024. So I was very late on that one. And Snapchat. Snapchat was
Mm.
all over the news because, like you said, it was like disappearing messages and
Mhm.
scary and creepy guys adding young
Yeah.
kids and like what's going on this app. So I recognized that there was a big market. There was a lot of attention around that. And I also recognized that I had this unique skill set in teaching people over the age of 40, let's call it, or even over the age of 35, how to use Snapchat. And I knew I had that skill because I had just taught my family and my parents how to use Snapchat. Because again, I was across the country and I was like, I don't want to text you guys all day. I don't want to like,
Yeah.
FaceTime wasn't as popular back then. So I was like, I don't want to FaceTime you. I want to just send you quick little Snapchats of what I'm doing in college and like my books and my schoolwork. And like, I just want to do that stuff. It'll be much quicker and much easier. So I taught them how to use Snapchat. So I recognized that I had a skill set that could uniquely solve a problem that a lot of people were facing. And so that's kind of where the idea for that initial course came from.
I love that. It's so true. You really have to like look at kind of what's going on in the world, seeing what you're good at, and then like applying that to your digital product. So that's so much fun. Okay, we got this question. I'm not going to ask all the questions right now from the question box from my community, but I feel like this one is good to ask now. So, do you have a team? Which I know you have a team. So I would love to hear what's the first thing you hired out for your team in the beginning,
Hmm.
and what does your team look like now?
Great question. Such a great question. So the first person I hired was a quote unquote virtual assistant. I hired her a few months after that first business launched. And when I hired her, I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what I was going to have her do. I didn't know how I was going to be able to afford to pay her. And I was just like, well, I've hired her. Like, I know this is the right thing to do. And every, big name and leader and my parents are telling me, like, you need to hire help. You need to hire help. You need to outsource. And so I was like, okay, I'm doing it, but I don't really know why or how or what to do next. So I hired her. And immediately that first month after she came on board, I surpassed the amount of revenue that I had done in the 6 months prior. So I think I hired her like month 6 of the business. So in the first 30 days after hiring her, I made more than in the first 6 months before her.
Oh my gosh.
And she's amazing. She's still with our team to this day, which
Oh, I
like
love
every
that.
time I see her on one of our calls, and she's overseas, but so every time I like see her on one of our Zoom calls 7 years later, like I legitimately get like choked up because I
Oh.
was 19 and she was probably like, I don't know exactly how old she was, but she was in her early 20s herself. And it's like so flipping cool. But I say that all to say it wasn't necessarily, and she's awesome, but it wasn't necessarily that she did something in that first month that made the revenue go crazy. It was just what she allowed me to do, which is
Yep.
she allowed me to focus more on things that were actually going to make a difference in the bottom line, things that were going to bring more leads to the business. I believe I went live on Facebook every single day for that entire month. And part of that was that I had more free time to go
Yeah.
live on Facebook because she was doing like little tasks for me, like checking my emails or replying to customers or helping with customer service. Really, for the first 30 days, it was tough to figure out like what the heck is she even going to do for me. But just the fact that I had that extra time and that I now had someone who I was responsible for, like outside of just myself. I
Yeah.
know a lot of entrepreneurs listening, they might already have people who are responsible for them, like their family, their loved ones, their partner, whatever. But at that time, I was a 19-year-old freshman in college. And so I had no dependents, but suddenly I had invented this dependent, someone who really relied on me. And so I was like, I'm going to have to increase my output so that I can pay her,
Yeah.
basically. And so that was my first hire. And now there's kind of like, I think of it like an onion. There's like layers to
Mm.
what my team is. So I have like my immediate team who works with Brock 11 Johnson LLC on a daily basis. And that's me as the CEO, my wife as the CFO. I have a community manager who her job is basically to schedule my posts and then engage with like my comments and my DMs. That way I don't have to be on my phone all day. And just it's really important to me that people feel seen and heard when they
Mm.
message me on Instagram. And so it's always either her or myself responding. So that's her job. And then I also have an editor who edits 16 reels or 16 short form videos for me per month. I did have a graphic designer. However, I'm at the point now with at least my personal social medias that I no longer need their services. So
Mm.
I would work with them as like a contractor for a few months here or there when I need designs. And then the last few months I haven't. And then I have a full-time virtual assistant. She's amazing. She's absolutely like right up there with my wife in terms of like keeping my life afloat. So she does like my email inbox, my schedule, my calendar, and any other little like routine tasks I need or odd projects like, hey, I need to find a new dermatologist. Can you do some
Mm.
research in the area and find a good one? That sort of thing. And so that I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I'm missing. That's like my primary immediate team who I work with on a daily basis. So it's like 4 or 5 people. And then as you start to kind of get into the bigger business, so if we're talking the Insta Club Hub, we have probably 20-ish employees, 25 employees on the Insta Club Hub who are doing everything that needs to be done. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that membership. We have about 5,000 active members, and there's
Wow.
just a lot of things that need to be done. We have like a 3-4 person team customer service. We have a copywriter. We have a graphic designer. We have 3 or 4 video editors. We have a community manager who kind of oversees the entire business. We have a marketing director. We have an advertising team. And so there's a lot that goes into that. And then if you're to zoom out even further, like the full outside, the outermost layer of the onion, like that kind of flaky bit, I guess you could call that like Team Johnson as a whole. And that's where I work with my parents still. And so within that, I would say there's maybe 30 to 40 different team members within Team Johnson as a whole, doing a lot of the things that I just mentioned with Insta Club Hub, but maybe for the different business centers. And then we also have like editors for our podcast and a YouTube manager for our YouTube channel and social media directors and managers for each account, because we have like a half dozen accounts in all the different businesses. So the small scale for me immediately on a day-to-day is like 5 to 6 people. And then 20-ish is the Insta Club Hub and 30-ish is Team Johnson.
Yeah. So for all you solopreneurs out there who see Brock putting out all this content and doing all these things, just know that like, yes, he's amazing and yes, he's talented, but he has so much support from people helping him. And I think a lot of the time we see these personal brands of people where it's like, you see one person on the outside. And I know that you're open about your team. Like I've heard you talk about them before. So I know you're not trying to sit there and be like, oh, I'm a one person team and I do all this and I post 3 times a day. No, like he has people supporting him. So if you're not able to keep up with that level, like I'm not growing 1,000 followers a day. I can't put out that many reels per day. Like I don't want the pressure of a big team like that. Right. So just don't compare yourself to Brock, because he has an amazing team supporting him so that he is able to only do like what he's passionate about. So what are your responsibilities?
Yeah. So my biggest responsibility on the daily basis is content creation, just in general, whether it's recording podcasts, because I now have 2 podcasts. So I'm doing 2 to 3 podcast episodes a week. I'm also going on amazing shows like this, and then creating my own content. So like you said, I'm posting 2 or 3 reels, or 2 to 3 posts, I should say, per day on Instagram. And most of those posts are also being posted at the same time on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Pinterest and LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. And so the majority of my time is spent on content creation. A lot of my time is also spent just kind of managing our team. As you said, as the team grows, the pressure to manage said team also grows. And so for the first year or 2 of the Insta Club Hub, I wasn't really acting as a CEO. I was acting as like a project manager and really just managing each of these individual people. And it wasn't until really the last year or so that I've truly elevated myself and my day-to-day routine and tasks into the like role of CEO, where I'm overseeing the business as a whole. I'm thinking big picture and long term rather than operating on the day-to-day. And that took, first and foremost, like 2 to 3 years of really getting in the nitty-gritty to figure out like what the heck needs to be done. What does this person need to be able to do? And then actually outsourcing that and hiring someone who can be the full-time project manager or business manager within the Insta Club Hub. So that I do probably an hour or 2 worth of meetings per day with our team. And then recently I've begun doing a fair amount of like advising. So I don't really do any one-on-one coaching anymore. But I do a fair amount of advising for like startups and tech companies and social media tools and softwares that are kind of looking for someone who is in you and I's place, which is a unique place, which is that we, on one hand, are quote unquote influencers. Like we have a lot of followers, but we are also business owners. So we kind of understand both sides of things. And then I guess the third thing is like, we know how to grow a following. And we're not just influencers because we had a couple viral videos. Like we strategically know how to do this stuff. And so people like you and I kind of can lend a unique eyesight or a unique perspective, I guess, to businesses. And so I've started doing that recently, and that's been really fun.
That's so fun. I feel like I do that all the time with just people that I meet in everyday life. Like we go to the chiropractor every week, and I swear, like every time I'm on the table, I'm like, okay, so this reel that you posted, let's go over. Like I
I love that
business, and I just can't help myself because you see people doing things, and like I think in trends. I think in how can you make this thing that happened in your business today content. My brain just naturally does it. So when I see it like out in the wild, I'm like, oh my God, I have to tell them they need to do this. Like this would convert so well, or like this would be so hilarious. I want to watch this. So it's hard to hold back, but that sounds like a lot of fun. Okay. Let's get into the nitty gritty. I got some questions from my audience. You are the king of Instagram growth. I feel like I've never said that. But I'd love to know. So for someone who is a solopreneur, or maybe only it's just them and a VA, something like that, how often would you recommend them posting for growth? I feel like I get this question all the time.
Yeah, I do too. And my answer is that there isn't a number. Like there's not a number that I can give, and people hate that. Literally, my last DM that I received before we started this podcast was someone asking me exactly this. They said, I was watching your training last week and I didn't catch. Did you say what frequency should I post? What I say is this. First, let's understand how the algorithm works. And I can tell you the facts. That's what we're going to start with. And then I'm going to tell you what I think you should do with the facts. And the facts are that statistically speaking, the more you post, the more you grow. Like that is statistically proven to be true. There are multiple studies that have shown this. The Instagram CEO, Adam Mosseri, has said this himself. As you increase your frequency of feed posts, not stories don't help you grow. For anyone who didn't know that, stories don't help you grow. As you increase your frequency of feed posts on Instagram, the growth rate usually also increases. That's the facts. So what I can say from that is the facts cause a lot of anxiety, and the facts cause a lot of people to freak out because the more you post, the more you grow feels like, well, oh my gosh, now I have to post 17 times a day. That's impossible. Yes, it is impossible. So instead, what I like to tell people is start with what you can sustain. Figure out the number that you can sustain. And that's going to be different for every single person listening based off their team and the season of life that they're in and their goals, right? Some people are trying to grow super fast, 1,000 followers a day. Some people are trying to just get back in the positive. Some people are just trying to maintain and they don't even necessarily care about their growth. And so with all of that being said, figure out what you can sustain and then challenge yourself to do a little bit more of an output. So if you can sustain 3 a day, then you're going to challenge yourself, or let's say 3 a week. Let's be a little bit more realistic.
Like,
let's say you can sustain 3 a day. Yeah, you can sustain 3 a day. You're great. All right, you can stop listening. If you can sustain 3 a week, challenge yourself to do 4. And what I've been saying recently, something that I think for a while was getting lost in my answer was when I say challenge yourself, I don't necessarily mean work harder or spend more time on your phone creating content. I think that there are numerous ways that you can work smarter, numerous ways that you can increase your output without having to increase your input. And if I can give one really quickly right now, Abigail, it would be for everyone listening to take their posts from, or just look at their posts from 90 days ago or more. So anything that they posted that's 3 months old or older, find one of those that just did well. It doesn't even have to be the one that did the best. Just find one that did well and post it again. Post it a second time. You don't have to delete the original. You don't have to change the caption. You don't have to say hashtag repost. Just literally take that video and post it a second time. And if you're someone who can sustain 3 a week, well, now all of a sudden you've unlocked a 4th post without having to spend more than like a minute or 2, like whatever it takes to actually press post or schedule it in whatever scheduling tool you use. And so that's one way that I have strategically scaled up my posting frequency because that whole reposting thing that I just shared, about 75% of my posts are reposts. 75% are either a repost of something I posted from the past, or a slight like recreation. Maybe I'm just like refreshing it, changing the caption, changing the audio. Maybe it's like the exact same script, but I'm just filming it in a new setting because the last time I filmed it, I had a mullet or like a tooth missing or something. And so, reposting or recreating your content is such an easy way to scale up your frequency without scaling up the amount of hours you have to spend working.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like remixing is another really fun way to like take concepts that have done well for you and then like apply it to the video. Like I posted one today that's about the Olympics, and it was Jordan. It said like how it feels to win your medal, and it was her reacting to her getting that bronze. And it was like super emotional and funny. And I did a remix and I just said like how it feels to make your first digital product sale. And then I asked people in the comments to tell me where they were when they made their first sale. Like it took me 2 minutes to make it on the bed. The other reel that I was going to post today, I didn't have the energy to do it. And it's just like, there's so many ways to like get yourself in front of your audience and have a conversation that aren't these like 90-second talking head videos or a trend that takes all this time. And it's really like, it can be simple. Am I expecting this reel to like gain me all these followers and do amazing? No, but like, that's not the goal. My goal is to like stay front of mind for people. When someone is thinking, I want to sell a digital product using Instagram, I want my name to be the first thing that they think of. So I do try to post at least 5 to 7 times a week because I want to like stay in front of that person. And it doesn't have to be this like complicated thing. And like you said, something I really love doing as well is an old concept and then just like refilming it or
Yeah.
redistributing it in a different way, like maybe taking a reel and taking the hook and putting that on a carousel and then putting the
Yeah.
caption on the rest of the carousel. Like it's not complicated. And I think we as creators and entrepreneurs, like we're thinking, oh my gosh, I already posted this, everyone read it, and they also no, like the smallest percent of your audience saw your first post, and nobody pays attention to your content the way you do. Like,
Yeah.
even I have to remind myself of that sometimes. I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. Like, I already posted this a month ago. And then I post it, and people are like, oh my God, I never knew this. I'm like, I
Mhm.
posted it a month ago. Didn't you see it? Like,
Yes. No, literally. Absolutely. It's crazy. Like, I mean, we there's this like really funny belief that a lot of people have. And yet it's a conflicting belief and they don't even realize it. And what I hear from people all the time, and I know you hear this too, Abigail, is no one's seeing my posts. My posts aren't reaching anyone. There's no new followers, no non-follower reach. Like no one's seeing my posts. So they have that belief. And then at the same time, they're hearing what you and I are saying right now, and they're like, I can't repost or recreate or remix because people will remember. They saw my post and they're going to remember. Those two beliefs cannot coexist at the same time. Like,
yeah,
there's no way that no one is seeing your posts and everyone who's seeing your post and they're remembering it. No, like they're seeing thousands of posts every single day. They're not seeing
yeah,
every one of yours, and they're not going to remember the ones that they
no,
do see. Like the 0.1% of people who do remember, they probably remember because it was that good and they
yeah.
wouldn't mind seeing it again. So yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How to improve story views? I tried letting them expire, and it sounds like that's not getting them the results they want. So, how would you go about improving story views?
I had this exact question word for word. Someone asked this on Threads the other day, and so I'm just going to basically say exactly what I said on Threads,
But everyone
which
saw that answer already.
exactly, no chance. Like 12 people saw it. Which, by the way, I'm loving Threads because
Oh
Threads is
my gosh.
100% me. And like, I know we talked about my team earlier, and I'm so thankful for them. And I'm able to do what I do because of them.
Yeah.
But I also think people might get lost when they hear about my team and think like, I'm not engaged with my socials. I'm still intimately involved in every single post that goes live. And on
Yep.
every platform outside of Instagram, it's all me. So like
Hmm.
Threads is all me. So, anyways, that's besides the point. So if your story views are low and you want to boost them up, the first thing, like the foundation, is take a 24-hour break. But that's not all. That's what was
Hmm.
effective like maybe a year and a half ago. But that's really just step one. That's not all that you should be doing because so many people know this hack now. And so many people are taking this 24 to 48-hour break. And that's not going to reliably boost your views. So take that 24 to 48-hour break. Then when you come back, you're only going to post one story. So rather than having a bunch of different clips, just one singular story.
Hmm.
And then, whatever you got to do, delete the Instagram app or tie your thumbs to your palms or whatever you got to do so you don't post anymore for the rest of the day. Because I know people are tempted to post a bunch. So just post one singular story. That story should start with a hook, something that's really going to grab people's attention. And I'm going to backtrack and say that the story itself should not be a talking head story. It should not be you blabbering onto the camera, yapping away. It should not be a photo. It should be a text post story. Like even just a blank, solid black background with some white text on top. If I pulled up right now my top 10 highest viewed stories in the last 12 months, 8 out of the top 10 are just black background, white text on top. Plain and simple, made right there in the Instagram app. No fancy Canva fonts or nothing. And again, that text, start with a hook that's going to grab people's attention. Ideally, it's going to like relate to your niche because
Hmm.
you probably want to boost your story views for a reason, like not just because you want more views that day, but because maybe you're launching something or you have a sale on your digital product or whatever. So start with a hook, multiple paragraphs of text. Now, I said this the other day on Threads, and someone's like, paragraphs? 2 to 3 sentences. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be, an 8 sentence long MLA format paragraph,
Yeah.
but 2 to 3 sentences for 2 to 3 paragraphs. And then end the last sentence of the last paragraph with a call to action that's asking people to reply with a keyword in order to receive whatever it is that you're promising them. And then, of course, we can talk more about DM automation. I know you won't know all about DM automation, so you can tell them if you want. But basically, you're using DM automation to then deliver whatever it is that they are replying for. What this will do is it will create an insanely high amount of engagement on that story because of two things. Number one's the obvious one. People are responding with that keyword. So that's
Yep.
like a very high form of engagement in Instagram's eyes. But the second thing that people don't realize is that story, because it's just a still image, is only supposed to last for about 5 seconds. But because there's multiple paragraphs, air quotes paragraphs, people have to hold their finger down to pause and read the entire story, which really increases your watch time or your view duration on that story. And so those two kinds of engagement is basically like that's a powder keg. And that's
Yep.
why those stories blow up and get so many views and reach so many more people. And so I do this probably 2 to 3 times a week and just consistently boost my stories higher and higher.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy. I definitely use it when I'm launching. And I know I've had a lot of feedback from people saying, like, I don't want to just do that. And I don't think you have to just do that. I think it works great to like do that for your selling 2 to 3 times a week. And then on the other days, your story can be more of like taking them through your day through the eyes of your business, right? Where you are connecting them with them a little bit deeper and just knowing that like your story views aren't going to be that high that day, right? Like, I don't think your story views always need to be crazy high, right? And I really enjoy watching people that still share a little bit about their life as well. So I think this strategy works so well, A, for launches. Like I've used it multiple times for launches and it's so powerful. And then B, if you're just wanting to kind of like soft sell or hard sell during the week, right? So
Mm-hmm.
leave it as that. And it's a lot easier to maintain, like doing that 2 or 3 times a week. I really have to like restrain myself because I love using stories and I love watching them. So they're fun for me. But when I do that, I literally have to be like, Abby, you can't post the rest of the day. Like, don't do it. Don't, because it works best when you let it be by itself for the full 24 hours. So yeah, I love that strategy. And it's really, yeah, if you guys aren't using ManyChat, that's the DM automation tool that we both use. It's wildly helpful,
Yeah.
even before you're making a ton of sales or having a ton of growth. Because when you do hit that like growth spurt, if you don't have it, it can hinder your growth so much. Because if you are trying to manually reply to all these people, not only is it not sustainable, it's so much work and they are literally asking you for a link, right? Like your time is better spent answering DMs where people are actually wanting to have a conversation with you. So DM automations are my favorite thing. I love them. ManyChat is the best. Okay, next question. How to infuse more fun into social media content? And I'd love it if you could give them like an example. I feel like you're really good at the fun stuff in your reels. They always make me laugh. And I think people forget that people want to laugh. People love
Yeah.
laughing. Like, and so much of social media has gotten so like clickbaity hooks and all this like serious stuff. And I still think you need to sell, but like the fun side it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just like bringing the joy, bringing the fun back into
Hmm.
Instagram or your social media is essential for your own longevity,
Yep.
avoiding burnout, increasing engagement. Like it's one of those intangible things that you can't quite put a number on, but your audience can feel it when you're
Oh yeah.
enjoying what you're creating versus when you're creating because you have to. And I think for everyone, there's a different thing that's going to bring them joy or a different
Yeah.
element or aspect of Instagram that really fills them up and feels rewarding for them. I, like you, really enjoy like keeping an eye on the pulse and like what's the trend that's going on right now? What's the funny thing? And I'm not talking, I know you're not either, about trending audios, but just like, what's going on in the world right now? The
Yeah.
Olympics, like maybe there's this moment that's everyone's talking about and creating content around that thing can be such a difference maker. So really, it's just like figuring out those ways that you can uniquely infuse joy and things that make you happy into your own content. And I think that part of me scheduling content in advance, which is something that I do and I'm a big fan of, is creating content at least a week or so in advance so that I don't have to worry about today. I
Hmm.
don't have to worry. I don't have to wake up and think, oh gosh, I have nothing scheduled to post today or tomorrow or for the rest of the week. So I have to. Suddenly I'm in a place where I have to make content.
Hmm.
And then that's when the content feels forced. It feels rushed. It feels pressured. It feels like homework. But if I have content that is scheduled, at least for the next few days, I now have freedom in my day to day to let inspiration strike and to act on that inspiration. And so a lot of my content that does the best or that's the funniest or that's like inspirational, whatever, is content that I just like made in the moment. And I was
Yep.
like feeling juiced. I was feeling fired up and I made it. And in fact, I did a study just over the last few days of my reels that have reached over 1 million people. And I've had 25 reels that have reached over 1 million views. 16 of the 25 were just jokes. Like there was no ideas or value or tips. Like they were literally just jokes. And of the 16, probably 14 of the 16 were like whipped up super fast and made in
Yep.
the moment. They weren't something that I planned and thought out and scripted and
Yep.
scheduled. They were just kind of whipped up. And so I think that's a great way to just infuse the fun and the joy back into content creation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said no value, but I strongly disagree. I think it's so valuable to make people laugh because the world is crazy, and even when the world isn't crazy, people still they want to show up and laugh. They don't want to take everything so seriously. And if I'm remembered by people that, oh, she made me laugh, yes, I learned a lot from her, but like I think it's valuable, a very valuable thing to make people laugh. So don't sell yourself short on that one.
I
Um,
appreciate that. I agree.
we had a few people actually say, how do you show up 100% yourself, even online, and how important is it?
I think it's extremely important, and I think it's the difference maker in growing on social media. But I think when you're
Mm.
first getting started, you're probably not going to show up as yourself, and that's okay. Because
Yeah.
I think people hear about like authenticity and they hear all these buzzwords. When ultimately, when you're first getting started, you have no idea what you are like online. You
Mm.
might have an idea of what you are like offline and with your friends, but you don't truly know what it's like for you to create content. Um, and really, when you first get started, you're just going to be kind of like parroting the people who you follow and the people who you look up to, and you're going to be sounding a lot like them. I can play
Yeah.
you videos from when I first got started, and they sound horrible. They sound atrocious. I have like YouTube accent, or I'm like talking in these weird ways, or just like mimicking these people who I look up to until you find your footing. And so
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely essential, and it's what will ultimately allow you to stand out the most. Rather than, I have a friend who says, rather than being everyone's cup of tea, I want to be
Yep.
someone's shot of vodka. And she's Russian, so like it
I
totally
love
makes
that.
sense when she says it. But that's the point, is basically just like being yourself is something that's cliche, but it's essential. And
Mhm.
it's going to be tough when you first get started because you don't know who you are on social media yet.
Yeah.
So just give it time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of learn as you go. Like when I first started showing up more, I was always behind a filter. I was always just feeling like I needed to be like perfectly put together. And then I started doing content. Like my daughter was really little when I started this brand, and I started kind of just posting when I could. And I was like sweaty. It was the middle of summer. My husband had just like had all these health issues. So like I was creating content while my daughter was playing outside, and I felt like a disgusting mess. And the amount of people that were like, oh my gosh, thank you for this message, but also thank you for just showing up as you today. And it really made me realize like people don't want perfect. They don't want, perfectly put together all the time. They want you showing up as you are. And now like I feel like that's what I'm known for. Like my branding has never been perfect. My fonts, my colors, none of that has ever been perfect. I rarely show up with a full face of makeup. Like I just show up as me. And now like that's a huge part of my brand. And I learned that just by like, okay, people want the real deal. Here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that in you and in what you're posting. And I love that you had, acknowledged that it wasn't necessarily how you started. Like when you
Yeah.
started, you were, more polished and you had the filter. If I look back at like some of my OG content in the Snapchat days, it's the same way. Like I had a filter, and I remember planning what I was going to say in a 15-second Snapchat story and re-recording it 8 different times because I didn't like the way
Yep.
I said it. Nowadays, I couldn't imagine if I was to re-record an Instagram story. Like
My
the only
gosh.
reason I would do that is if I hit the 60-second mark and it like cut me off mid sentence. Even that, I'd
Yep.
probably just trim it and like do another story. So,
Yep.
yeah, no, it takes time, but I absolutely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what would you say is the secret to Instagram growth and sales at the same time? Because I do feel like a lot of people who are out there teaching Instagram growth, like I will see what they're suggesting, and I'm like, yeah, of course that's going to grow your account, but that's never going to make you sales. So, like,
Yeah.
how can you kind of bridge that gap? Like, what type of content kind of bridges that gap?
Yeah, I feel like that these two things oftentimes exist in different seasons, and I think that there's a season where you're really focused on growth and acquisition and new followers, and then there can be
Mm-hmm.
a season where you're really focused on lead acquisition and new customers. And I feel like while these seasons can overlap, it's very difficult to go back to back with like one reel that's going to go viral and build you a bunch of followers, and then the next reel is like super in depth and going to build your customer base. The overlap there, like the Venn diagram, the part that's in the middle, is that ultimately, either way, you are solving a problem.
Yep.
You are like answering a need or addressing an issue or a challenge or a concern. The difference is that in the viral post or in the post that's gaining you followers, you might just be positioning yourself as the expert and
Hmm.
following you as the answer to the problem. Whereas when you're selling, you're likely promoting your lead magnet or your offer or your opt-in as the solution. And
Yep.
so it's just a matter of like what you position the solution as.
Yeah.
But I also think that selling oftentimes is easier in the DMs and or is easier on stories, and the DMs and the stories obviously don't help you grow. Like they're only
Yeah.
reaching your existing followers. And so I primarily use my reels most of the time. I would say 80+% of the time, my reels are not focused on selling or promoting or even trying to like warm up a lead. They're just
Mm-hmm.
focused on engaging my existing audience or serving them or connecting with a new audience and like helping reach new followers. And I'm primarily using my stories and my DMs to do the sales, and then the occasional reel here or there, like maybe
Yep.
one or two a week out of the 14 to 20 reels that I'm posting a week are really like driving people to a lead magnet.
Yeah. And this just goes to show that like you can do things different ways and still be successful. Like I am not the opposite, but I definitely sell more in my reels and I sell more on my feed content than I do anywhere else essentially. Like I sell in stories as well, but I definitely like switch it up. So if I'm selling hard in a reel that day, my stories wouldn't be selling hard that day, right? Like there's always this like balance going on. But my strategy is very different from Brock's. And this is just a reminder that like you can pick what works well for you. And I am really good at conversion content. So like that's what I teach. That's what I do. And I have fun with it. But I love hearing people kind of like do things differently and still have success with that. So I love that. Okay, let's do a rapid fire. Instagram myths and if they are true or not. So I'm sure that you get so many questions about these. So if you have like 3 or 4, maybe, and let us know if they're true or not.
Yeah. So, do you want me to just kind of go through the list
Yeah,
and,
I feel like you
rattle
have
off?
more than
Okay.
me.
Yeah, I have an entire list of myths. So I think this is 17. Don't count me because I might be off by one or two, but I'll just quickly run through a bunch of them. So number one, you cannot edit your caption after posting or else your post will not be shown to new people. That's a myth. You can edit your caption all you want to. Number two, logging off after posting will help boost the algorithm. Absolutely not. That's like such an outdated myth that you should post and ghost. Absolutely not. Saves are the best form of engagement. No, not if you're trying to grow. On average, if you're trying to grow, shares, I would argue, are the best form of engagement, not a save. It's not 2019 anymore. Consistent aesthetics and a matching, perfectly pre-planned grid is essential for growth. I do not believe so. I think that if you're in an aesthetic industry, it might help
Hmm.
to plan your grid a little bit, but it doesn't have to be like this matching checkerboard, pre-planned aesthetic. That's also kind of an outdated strategy. Promoting posts means that in the future, your posts are not going to reach as many people because Instagram thinks they've got you. No, that is a myth. You can promote a post today, and it will not mean that you're going to get less views or engagement in the future. This one's a really big one that I hear a lot about recently, which is removing fake or inactive followers is beneficial. That's another myth. And I believe that's a myth because we've seen that when you're removing massive amounts of followers and blocking people, especially now with like Instagram has the like remove spam button and it will remove hundreds or thousands of followers in one swoop. And a lot of them are not even like spam followers. A lot of them are real people. Very detrimental to your account, not very helpful. Let's see. Story views don't count as real views. So if you like share your reel to your story, that won't count as a real view. That's not true. It does count as a real view. So if you want to boost up your real views, you might as well share them to your story. Your captions have to be a certain length. No, that's a myth. Your reels have to be a certain length. No, that's a myth. Stories help you grow. No, they do not. 99% of the time, they're only reaching your existing followers. Buying likes and or followers is a great way to boost up your account when you're first getting started and give yourself some credibility. Absolutely not. And I wish this was a video podcast so you guys could see Abigail's eyes roll far in the back of her
Cringing.
head right now. Let's see. The shadow ban is real and something that a lot of people experience. I don't think so. I think it's something that's very, very rare. I think that it might happen to like 0.01% of people, but it ain't happening to the average person on the average day because their views are just low.
Yeah.
And then let's see if there's any other ones that I want to hit on really quick. Oh, the reels are the only way to grow. I don't think so. We've seen plenty of success with photos and with carousels. So reels are not the only way to grow. I know that was super fast, but you asked for rapid fire.
Rapid fire. I feel like with those ones, we just need, is this true or not? And you are spot on with all of them. Now, before we go and before you kind of let us know how people can learn more from you, I would love it if you could just do a quick, like mini Instagram audit, like a whole Instagram real quick. Again, a rapid fire. So you guys pull out your phones right now. I have mine out and he's just going to go through like, what should be there, what shouldn't be there, from the top to the bottom.
Totally. Do you have a specific profile that you want me to review or look at?
Oh, why don't you do mine?
Oh, do you want me to do yours?
That'd be fun because I didn't ask anyone for permission and I would never want to do someone's without their permission. So yeah, have at it.
Okay, I will. And I'm going to be as mean as I possibly can.
Here we go.
No, I'm kidding. So your username being your first and last, I love that. That's like totally fine. And I think that's especially true for people who are trying to build a personal brand.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than when someone builds a personal brand, but they have like some catchy nickname as their username. And then it's like, I don't know what your name is. Like I'm supposed to connect with you as a person and I don't even know the first thing I should know. So I love that. Your profile picture is obviously a great photo of you. I love that in your nameplate, which I heard Modern Millie use the word nameplate, and it's the first time I've heard it described as such. It's the name line below your profile picture. I've always struggled to like, what do we call that? But nameplate.
That's genius.
Yeah, so nameplate. So your nameplate says Abigail Pugh, IG growth and digital products. I'm going to challenge you on this one because I used to have IG growth and I was concerned that people weren't searching IG and they were searching Instagram. And so I changed that. Be careful if you do end up changing yours, just make sure you spell Instagram right. Because the first time I changed mine, it went from IG growth coach to Instagame growth coach. And I was stuck like that for 90 days. That
I laughed so hard when that happened, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that was horrible. The amount I had to set up a DM automation just to respond to people who were messaging me saying like, there's a typo. I set up a message like, yes, I'm aware, I'm working on it.
So beware. You have 90 days. That is when you change it. You can't change it for 90 days.
I was verified before Meta verified, and so it was like 60 or 90 days. It was kind of a weird thing, so I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and that was also a couple years ago, so things might have changed. The next thing I look at is your Threads badge, also known as we used to call it like the Threads count. And that's the very first thing on your bio, the first thing that someone might see. And so I think we're splitting hairs here, but I'm going to have to split hairs because you're literally a professional. So I think you would benefit from removing that from your bio, unless I don't know what your goal is, unless you're trying to get more followers and more engagement on Threads. Because my thought is someone might see that and there might just be like a 1 or 2% of people who's like, what is this? Or click on it. Or they're like, what's this thing? Or maybe they do want to follow you on Threads and then they leave Instagram and go to your Threads. Maybe they don't come back to your Instagram. Something to think about.
I never thought about that. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't know you could remove it. So there you go.
Good old Instagram. They snuck it in there on us after they launched the Threads app because they're like, ooh, this will be a great way to get more people on Threads. So they snuck it in without telling us. But it's just a button in the profile. And then right below that, you have your category displayed. So it says like entrepreneur right there. That's another thing that I'm actually going to challenge you and split hairs and say that let's remove that.
Okay.
Because I don't think that tells me anything I don't already know.
That's true.
But that takes up one of the like 4 lines. Like, as you know, there's only 4 lines that show up in your bio. And so right now, your third line, the learn from me line, is getting cut off. Now, luckily, you only have 3 lines. So like the entrepreneur thing doesn't really detract from your bio. But I think that entrepreneur line doesn't help anyone who's landing on your page.
I feel like, did they sneakily turn that on? Because I don't ever remember. I just turned it off right now. I didn't know that I could turn that off. I just
You
did right
definitely
now.
did not turn that on. It's another one of those things that they just like. I set up a new profile for a new account that I created like literally 3 days ago, and now it's a setting. So now when you're creating your
Oh,
account, they kind of put it in your face and they're like, "Do you want to turn this on? Yes or no?"
gotcha.
But when we created our accounts, it wasn't a thing. Like it was just automatically turned on, and you had to be aware and like manually go in and find
Hmm.
it and turn it off.
So
Yeah.
sneaky of them.
Sneaky, sneaky. The rest of your bio, I love. I love helping creators and business owners. You like clearly call out the who, sell more digital products using Instagram. That's exactly what you're doing. And you're also getting specific. You're not saying something general like I help you grow or I help you
Yeah.
monetize, like specifically sell more digital products. And then I love that you have some credibility, 12,000 plus students taught and learned from me and an arrow. So I wouldn't change a thing. Stan Store is awesome. I love your highlights, wouldn't change a thing. And then when I like look at your grid as a like bird's eye view, it looks, I wouldn't change a thing. Again, it's like perfect, it's awesome. And what I mean specifically, or what I notice specifically, is that I can tell what each of these reels are going to be about before I click on them.
Yep.
They're not all like pre-planned, matching, aesthetically pleasing,
Yep.
but that's not what I want them to be, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
not following you for interior design tips or for,
Exactly.
makeup ideas. I'm following you because, as I can see on your reels, start here. I'm following you struggling to make digital product sales, low moments of owning an online business, me as a business owner, July recap. Like I'm seeing things that I know what they're going to be. They
Yep.
clearly relate to your niche. They can clearly serve me. So I wouldn't change a thing with your reels and your feed posts and the way it all looks put together.
Woo, I made it. Made it through.
You made it. You made it.
So all that to say, you guys, make sure your name is clear. Make sure your profile picture is as current as possible. Mine's not super current, but like I still look the same, you know.
It looks the same.
Make sure that your what a nameplate, as he said, I
Mm-hmm,
love that,
mm-hmm.
is your name. And then I have a dash to separate it. And then essentially you want that to be what people are searching to find you. So a lot of the time I see people in that spot doing like very niche specific wording. And I'm like, honey, nobody's searching that to find you. Like it
Yeah.
needs to be something that is like so specific. I actually need to make a reel about this, but somebody, I was looking for a spray tan. I'm going on the Stan Store ambassador trip, and I'm like so white right now. And I was like, we're going to Napa. I like don't want to look white.
I'll see you there, by the way.
Oh, you are? Oh my gosh, I didn't
Yeah,
know
I'm
you were
going to.
going.
So we'll get to hang out there. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so
I'll
excited.
have to
But
get a spray tan too.
well, I was like, where it's going to be in Napa. So I searched Boise, which is where I live, spray tan. 4 people came up. I was like, there's no way in hell there are only 4 spray tan people in Boise, Idaho. Like, there's no way. And I'm like, these people are losing out on sales. And you bet your bottom dollar I booked someone that came up when I searched, right? And so it's like you're losing out on so much if it's like this niched thing or this like super specific thing. So mine is a little bit more broad, and I'm going to change it to Instagram growth and digital
I
products,
love it.
not IG.
I have one thing I want to say. One idea just popped in my head because you just had that real idea of like talking about the spray tan thing. You should create that reel either like while you're getting your spray tan or like right after you
Right?
get it done, or like do half the reel without the spray
Oh
tan and
my
then half
God.
the reel with it. I think
I
that would
should.
be so great.
I should. That would be hilarious. I've never gotten one before, so I'm a little nervous, but we'll see. But then down below, again, for your bio, like just calling out exactly who you talk to. And you guys, I will link this in the show notes. Brock actually has this great post on what to do in your Instagram bio, because it is slightly different for like new people. If you don't have social proof, right? I didn't always have 12,000 students in my bio. I didn't start with 12,000 students. I started with 0. Right. And so like there's different ways to do it. And he has a great carousel. He posted it like probably 6 months ago, and I have it saved somewhere, and I send it to people when they ask me questions, because it's like very templatized and easy to be like, okay, I plug this in, I'll plug that in. So I'll link that in the show notes for you guys. But Brock, thank you so much for coming on today. This was so much fun. I feel like we could talk forever, but we're at 50 minutes, so I'll let you guys go. But Brock, I'd love to hear what the best ways that people can find you. Which actually, side note, why is it Brock Johnson 11? Why is there an 11 in there?
Yeah. Okay. So
Real
there's a
quick.
few things. Yeah, there's a few things. The 11's because that was my football number. So that's like a family number. It's tattooed on
Gotcha.
me. it's been our family number for like 4 generations now. So it's like
Aw.
very big in our family.
It's on his podcast mic too, you guys. I can see it right
Yeah,
now.
there's 11s everywhere. There's 11s everywhere. Answer number 2 is you and I will get to hang out and spend all of our time talking at the stand meetup. So I'm super excited for that. And number 3, I love the word templatized, and that I really appreciate that you're sending out one of my old carousels. That means a lot. But finally, to answer your question, thank you so much for having me. And if anyone wants to get connected and learn more, Brock 11 Johnson is the best place to get connected on all socials. Instagram's definitely where I'm most active, and that's my bread and butter. But if someone wants an easy way to start a conversation with me, Threads or TikTok is probably that. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on today, Abigail, and can't wait to hang out in Napa.
Yeah, and you guys, he didn't talk about this at all, but he does have an Insta Club Hub, and it is a monthly membership. I mean, you tell them a little about it because I don't know all the details, but I've seen a lot of people like come out of it and using it and seeing their growth just like skyrocket. So tell us a quick blurb on that before I let you go.
Yeah, it is. We designed it to try to be the last Instagram resource that anyone might need. And so basically, it's a monthly membership. We also have an annual option that's really discounted and has some extra perks and benefits that will meet you where you are. So you take an assessment to figure out where you're at on Instagram, whether you're a newbie or an advanced influencer expert. And we recommend playlists. We have trainings, templates, custom content calendars designed specifically for you, coaching, all of that good stuff. That's all available in the club.
Awesome. I will link all of that below for you guys. Brock, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I will see you next week, hopefully nice and tanned.
Yeah, nice and tan. I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me and my guest today. If you learned anything from our episode, I would love it if you could share it over on your Instagram stories and tag me at Abigail Pugh. Until next time, love you, mean it.